Okay, guys, so what you can see, I'm just going to tell you about how the key times in the market work. So you'll notice that, for example, from London session is from 8 until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. After 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the market can turn. So if a trade is called at 10 o'clock, look to take that trade until 2 o'clock. Because sometimes a trade can continue from 10 until 6 or from 10 until 8, but the likelihood is from 10 till 2, then the market will turn in the other direction because we're in a whole new time zone, right? A whole new era for the markets. So a whole new session. So you can see here, EURUD from 6 until here, 10, right? At 10 o'clock, it started selling. Great. Great example. Let's look at another one. Let's look at EUR CAD. Okay, so here, EUR CAD has been actually called as a sell. Now the sell has been called at 2 o'clock, but also a sell potentially was called at 10. So you've got to understand that the difference between 10 and 2, you may as well just enter the trade at 2 o'clock. It's a clear shot down. All right. So if you're going to trade from, let's say, for example, if it was a buy, for example, at 2 o'clock, it changed. So 10 till 2 changed, right? But for example here, look, from this, when it was called as a sell, that would have already done 41 pips. So just know that it changes at 2 o'clock. Take the trades at the best time. So let's say, for example, here, let's look here. This was 10 o'clock in the morning, called as a sell. But then look what happened. The next candle was 2 o'clock, which is right there. It went down and then it came back at 2 o'clock. It was called here. So you may as well go from 10 until 2 and that's it before it pulls back and then goes the other way. Does that make sense? Or 10 till 2 and then close. Another example here. Trade was called as a buy from 10. Then here, 2 o'clock. What happened? It didn't keep buying. At 2 o'clock, it then sold, right? And it continued down from 2 o'clock, right? Let's look at an example here. Buying from 2 o'clock. Perfect. From 6, see 10, looked like it was going to sell, but then it counted, again, 2 o'clock. So from 10 till 2, take the trade, or from 2 until 6, take the trade. Don't go from 10 till 6, my advice. Let's look again. Let's look on a different pair, EURJPY. Perfect example here. This is a perfect example of what I'm saying about making sure that you're out of the trade by the designated time. So if the trade was called today, as you can see here, it was called at 10 in the morning. You can see there at 10. But by 2 o'clock, it reached its highest point. So it had already done 72 pips from when it was called. And it actually reached its highest point of 72 pips. But at 2 o'clock, it then went and sold. And now it's EURJPY is continuing to sell. And it's already down now 88 pips. I hope this is making sense, right? So it's actually continued to sell because it was buying at a certain point from 10 until 2. So ensure that when you're in these markets and you're trading, ensure that you are getting in and closing at the right time. So 10 till 2 close, right? 2 o'clock till 6, 8 o'clock close, right? Let's look again. Let's look at EURNZD. Another example, from this morning, from 10 o'clock the trade was called, buying 67 pips. At 2 o'clock, the market turned into a sell. And we're already down right now 75 pips. So you could have made 67 pips up, closed at 2 o'clock because you entered at 10 till 2. And then you could be making right now 75 pips, well, to where it is right now, you could have made, say, 60 odd pips down. So that's 130 odd pips, right? To where it is right now. 10 till 2. So set your alarm from 10 and close at 2. Or set your alarm from 2 and close at 6 or close at 8 latest. Let's look again, EURUSD. I'm going to keep going on about this so you understand. So again, it was called as a buy at 10. But guess what? It went to its highest point. Let me see how many pips it went for EURUSD today. Here to here, did 31 pips. But at 2 o'clock, guess what? It changed. And it's already dropped down 60 pips, 61 pips. So 10, it went one direction until 2, and then 2 o'clock, it's changed direction. So that's that's 90 pips between these two trades. And then let's look at the GBP pairs. Okay. Sell called at 10 o'clock. This is an example of where it's continued on. But look, 2 o'clock, there we can see. So Even though, yes, you would have been in there, but 2 o'clock is safe enough to know that it still broke out. Does that make sense? So this is what's happened here. But look, a day before, 10 o'clock, what happened at 2 o'clock? It reversed into a buy. Sold 70 pips, but then 2 o'clock, it reversed up into a buy. And look how many pips it went up. 133 pips up to there. Right? So 2 o'clock is the magic number. If you're going to choose one time to take the trade, I would say take it at 2 o'clock. All right, but there's another example. Let's look at GBP CAD. GBP CAD called as a sell. Perfect, and it's done its thing. And what time? 10 o'clock, but also you could have gone in at 2 o'clock. Okay, we called it as a sell. GBP USD. 10 o'clock called as a sell, and as you can see, then it also called it was also available. So look at the difference between 10 o'clock, it went down, but then it pulled back up. Here's the difference between here and here. You're talking only 15 pips. It still dropped down nicely. So if you want to take the 2, just take the 2 o'clock. Right? You can see here, called as a sell at 10, and what happened at 2 o'clock? It went up into a buy. Called as a buy at 10, and at 2 o'clock, started dropping into the sell. Called as a sell at 2 o'clock. 6 o'clock it bought. So you can see where I'm saying 2 till 6. Take the trade because it can start reversing from 6 o'clock. So set your alarms effectively. Right? Buy 6 o'clock. Right? Sell 10 o'clock. And again, from 2 o'clock, 6 o'clock, I started reversing up into the buy. There are set times for when the market does what it does. GBPJPY, let's take a look. This is consolidation. Also, don't trade consolidated markets. Make sure you don't trade in consolidated markets as well. But we can see here, sell 2 o'clock. And what happened at 6 o'clock? It started buying. So your key times are 10 till 2 and 2 till 6. See here, 2 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock, it went down to a sell. Buying from 2, 6 o'clock went down to the sell. So set your alarms on your phone. 10 o'clock. All right, 6 o'clock, started selling, down. Let's look again, GBP USD. Right. So GBP USD called 10 o'clock, and then guess what? 2 o'clock, it went up into a buy the day before, a few days before. 10 o'clock sold, and then 6 o'clock started going up into a buy. 10 o'clock sold, and it's continued on. So my point is, guys, always close out your trades from 10 till 2. Here's another example. 2 o'clock, 6 o'clock went up into a buy. So 2 o'clock, it was called as a sell on that day, and it did a nice 95 pips. But at 6 o'clock, it pulled back. Here we go. And it pulled back how many pips? Till the next day, 91 pips. So what if you take this trade? You would have made almost 200 pips that day. You closed from 2 o'clock till 6, you've made your money. Then 6 o'clock until the next day, you've made your money. Almost 200 pips. Right? Bought 10 o'clock. And let's see, at 2 o'clock, guess what happened? It changed direction into the sell, as you can see there. So look at this for a perfect example of a trade. Called here, 10 o'clock. It did 278 pips. Not, in fact, even lower than that. That was a huge trade on GJ that day. Right, 378 pips from 10 o'clock. But then at 2 o'clock, it reverted into a sell. And let's look here. This is 2 o'clock here, highest point. And it went down to a sell to the next day. 222 pips. So 500 pips off that trade. So how do I know when these things happen? I know by the colors. You're going to know by the colors on the charts when the market's changing direction. But you got 10 till 2 and 2 till 6. 10 till 2 and 2 till 6. This is the magic. And final example here. Bought from 2 o'clock. 118 pips. And then when it hit 6 o'clock, it started selling. As you can see here, drop down 111 pips. 10 till 2, 2 till 6. There you go, guys. Let's rock this out. So whenever these trades are coming through and they're called in the market, know to get out by a certain time. Look, you'll see things change. 10 o'clock, EURNZD was a buy, right? But as we continue on, we can see EURNZ was called as a buy today from 10 o'clock. But let's go and look at what it's done after 2 o'clock. EURNZD was called as a buy. Look, 67 pips. But at 2 o'clock, it started selling 67 pips down. Sorry, 79 pips down. Right? So just know this. Make sure you're out of the market by the designated time. And then 2 till 6. Choose your time when you're going to trade. You're going to trade from 10 till 2, or you're going to trade from 2 till 6. And that's it. And then you see yourself in the market again the next day.